what do you mean by this question? Is this creativity's AlphaZero moment? And is it game over for human creativity? Is this one of the superpowers that we might as well just give up and let AI do all the art and creativity?
Look, it was one of the things which drove me nuts at the start, because guess what? I've been studying the neuroscience of creativity for a very long time. I had this sense of what is creativity, how it works in our brains. So when I started seeing some of the early research, so Ethan Mollick, together with like BCG and Harvard and a number of others, like created this sort of research, and they tested out, people using AI in different sort of like to solve an analytical problem, to solve a creative problem. And in the creative problem, like what they realized was, if people used AI and took the answers straight out of AI and didn't change it, they actually came up with better ideas than if they actually tried to manipulate it or didn't use AI in the control case. And there was this sort of concept, which is like, hang on a minute, AI can do creativity better than humans, like to the point. Humans shouldn't touch what comes out of AI when it comes to creative ideas. It blows us away. Then all of these different research papers started coming out who started diving into it. And they used the classic test for creativity, which has been the gold standard. So with this, which was the alternate uses test, this is the test which has been used to be able to validate and sort of assess how creative an individual is. And it's huge amount of correlation. And it was a great guide for a long time, which was you're given an object, like in this case, a cup, and asked how many different uses can you think of for a cup? And the more uses you can think of, and the more different kinds of uses, like you can think of, that you are considered more creative. So this is the idea of divergent creativity, which was what it was actually testing, because they realized that, your ability to not only see a cup as, hey, this is just for my coffee, I can put toothbrushes in there. I can use it as a stand. I can use it to plant a pot. I can use it as a game. I can use it as a huge swimming pool, make it really large. I can make it teeny tiny and do something interesting. I can make it drums. I can make it all of these things. I can break all the pieces apart and actually grind it down and do something else with it. Alternate uses test was this great test to be able to test our ability of divergent thinking. So there was this huge correlation with people who scored highly on this and how creative they were. So this was the gold standard to be able to test creativity. So what these researchers and all these different papers testing out large language models and AI, they started using this creativity. And guess what? You ask how many different uses for a cup, and AI, all of these models pretty much can come up with millions if you keep pushing them. And Zay was like, hey, this is, basically AlphaZero moment. Creativity is done. Humans should just retire from this. They should just let AI. To the point, there was this new test, which is divergent association, which took it a little bit further, which is a more advanced test, which is you have to come up with 10 words. And the sign of creativity is if you have to come up with words which have very little overlap. So if you think about that semantic space, you're trying to find 10 words which are the edges of the semantic cloud of information and knowledge. And the more further apart every piece of knowledge is, the higher the score is. And again, large language models do really well at this. Not as well as the alternate uses test, but guess what? With something like Pro and some of the more advanced models, it blows this away. So again, divergent thinking, which is creativity is done, right? AI. So that's what everybody started running around and saying.
Look, and based on this false premise that the essence of creativity, that the ultimate expression of creativity is divergent thinking. And that's something that you have been countering for as long as I've known you. You've talked about this concept, something that Albert Einstein made famous, and this notion of combinatory play. And you have told me over and over again, look, it's not romantic, but the essence of creativity is simply combining two or more ideas to come up with a new idea. And this is how you started thinking about better ways of testing AI. So what is it about combinatory play and what Einstein came up with that led you to this notion that, no, it's not game over for human creativity?
Yes. So getting to combinatory play. So this is this amazing quote from Einstein. So Jacques Hadman restarted a whole bunch of mathematicians and scientists to be able to test out and work out what is the essential pieces of creativity and inventiveness in scientists and mathematicians. And there was this survey which went out to all these people, and everybody filled it out except Albert Einstein refused to fill it out. But he wrote this beautiful letter, which Jacques Hadman put in the appendix of his report. And in this, he describes in fairly, visual detail this idea of like these, when he's creative and he's thinking about something, he has these like ideas which are like balls with hooks, like floating around, and they hook together and they combine and create new things. And this idea of combinatory play, he basically defined it as the essential feature in productive thought. So combinatory play has been around there. It took another couple of decades to be able to get to a point where science started catching up with this. Actually, nearly 100 years, and science started catching up with this. So this idea of what it is, to come up with new ideas. So combinatory play, which is, whether you think about Gutenberg to combine the idea of a coin punch with a wine press. So he was like trying to solve this idea of printing, and he'd been looking at this. He understood coin punches, and he was looking at a wine press, and it suddenly occurred to him he could bring the two together to create a machine, which was the printing press. So that was just combining these two ideas. Researchers and scientists over the last 20 to 30 years have been pulling this together and going, actually, this is this essence of how our brains actually create it. But it wasn't until very recently, in the last sort of 10 years, that Elkanon Goldberg, this amazing researcher, wrote this book which combined the neuroscience of this and basically came up with like that not only is creativity, combinatory play, that's how our brains do it, but actually started mapping out how this actually works between system 1 and system 2. He uses analogies, right? Even looking at the history of creative thought, he goes back to 30,000, 40,000 years ago and shows these like figurines. There was something which happened about 30,000 or 40,000 years ago, which started creating hominids. Our brains changed in a particular way, which started creating these sort of half lion, half human sort of models, right? There was idea of mermaids, and there's so many other things which came together, which was just a combination of two different things. And he started mapping that to what was actually happening in the brain and how it took different models of different areas of our unconscious brain, brought it together in our working memory in system 2, and combined it and created something new. So this became the essence of understanding how creativity happens in our brain. So yes, it is combinatory play. It is a little bit of how divergent thinking works, right? It gets us out of functional fixedness, which is like when we see a cup, it's a cup, it's a cup, it's a cup. That's what stops us. So for a long time, the essence of creativity was the thing which humans found the hardest to do. So this creativity, even though it's imbued in us, is built into our brains, a lot of people have a hard time breaking free of something called functional fixedness. So the reason the alternate use test, the divergent association test used to be highly correlated with what is creativity, because that was the hardest step in the creative process. So AI has come along and it can do combinatory play in spades. It can do that on its own little associative semantic web. You can just prompt it and it can come up with things. But again, this is the idea of being Superman on Krypton. Like when everybody has this power, like, how do you actually differentiate? And this is what allowed me to step back and go, hang on a minute, divergent thinking isn't the be all and end of creativity.
And brought you to this concept of augmented creativity. And so here again, we see one of these frameworks that you've landed this year, which is or before this year, but how you're overlaying and helping people understand how to augment their intelligence, how to think with machines, and in this case, how to boost your creativity, how to give yourself creative superpowers by using System 3 AI. And again, it's input, process, and output. So walk us through how to actually augment our creativity.
Look, the first thing which you have to realize is, yes, processing in the creative sort of model is this idea of divergent thinking. So this ability to connect things, combinatory play in the head, right? So what I realized was you still have the ability to be able to change what you put it in. So how you prompt, how you basically go, which areas of the semantic web you want the LLM to go and look at, what new things, like there's probably research and things you go deeper on, which, you know, the LLM doesn't have. So that idea of what you put in, input, then working together with the machine. So this is system one, system two, and system three. So this is where we tap into, you know, not only combinatory play, but incubation. How do you actually use system one and system two, which is part of the creative process I developed over the years? And then how do you use system three with this sort of very unique, you know, input? And then how do you actually, you know, develop better ideas? So this processing piece is you augmented in the middle. But guess what? Yes, large language models, even with you in the middle, is going to come up with these amazing set of ideas. Now, at least you've beaten the competition, but now you have to find a way of evaluating which of those million ideas are actually good ideas. So yeah, you can build new testing things, but this is where somebody with superpowers and understands creativity, understands the domain, understands the context, understands innovation, is far better at being able to go, actually, that's a great idea. That's never been done before. This is a brilliant idea, right? So this is where this brings the best of humans together with the best of machines and really looks at the whole creative process. And to me, augmented creativity, and the reason I double clicked into it to really explain this, not only has it been this buzzword where everybody's running around saying the AlphaZero moment and it had to be challenged, but it gives you an example of a complex thought process, which is where the future of augmented intelligence is going, and gives you how you actually can use systems thinking to be able to improve it. So this goes the same for, you know, whether it's mathematics, it's science, it's innovation, it's research, it's synthesis, or whole new ways of thinking, which we haven't even thought about yet. You need to understand how to think with systems.